says there's no grounds for obstruction charges. ICE is trying to the federal government, Homeland Security, is trying to bring obstruction charges against the ladies that intervene with the Hispanic gentleman that was illegally in the country, that was, some call it arrested, others call it kidnapped out of the Albemarle County Courthouse. We'll talk about activist attorney Jeff Fogel's statements on today's program. We will remind the viewers and listeners that John Reed, the embattled lieutenant governor candidate, will join us on the I Love CVille show tomorrow. I see that we are now live on Twitter, Judah. We are live on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you could, please. Search I Love CVille. If you're watching on YouTube, can you hit the like button for us? That would mean a lot to us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and like the show. Hammer the like button. Are we live on I Love CVille Food, J-Dubs?
Yep.
You're a good man, Judah. Which headline most intrigues you and why, Judah?
There's a lot of good ones again. I think that, I definitely like the fact that the Charlottesville City Schools got the FEI building. I think that's great. Great news.
No concerns on how this will impact taxpayers, huh?
Was anybody going to pay taxes on it? I don't believe it was.
Well, they're going to have to maintain the building. Every year that they own the building, they're going to have to maintain it and upkeep the building. That money is going to have to come from somewhere.
That's fair.
I understand that they're acquiring the building for $0, but they're going to have to maintain the building. And some history has shown that maintenance with city buildings has not always been the MO, if you may, of city-owned real estate. We still got a parking lot over here that the city owns. They own, the Lucky 7 and the Guadalajara buildings over here. All right, let's have some fun here. I'm ready to rock and roll. Are we live on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
We're live. Man, Judah, you're doing a great job today. All right, rock and roll when you're ready.
Quiet on the set.
Welcome to the I Love CVille show. My name is Jerry Miller. It's Wednesday afternoon in downtown Charlottesville. Thank you kindly for joining us on the I Love CVille show, our flagship program today, presented by our friends at Charlottesville Sanitary Supply. 60 consecutive years, Judah, in business. Charlottesville Sanitary Supply, online at charlottesvillesanitarysupply.com, and on East High Street, where they are approaching 61 years in business. John and Andrew Vermillion doing things the right way. So much to cover on the show. The Federal Executive Institute has a new owner. This news broke moments ago. And no, it's not the University of Virginia. The kingpins of monopoly in Charlottesville and Albemarle County, the University of Virginia, licking their wounds and staggering back to their executive headquarters without winning a real estate transaction. The winners of said transaction: Charlottesville City, City Hall, Charlottesville Public Schools, Sam Sanders, the city manager, the superintendent, Dr. Royale Gurley. They have already released a statement touting their victory. And ladies and gentlemen, boy, is it a big one for Charlottesville, Virginia. You have 14 acres and one of the most coveted portions of Charlottesville, one of the most coveted locations of Charlottesville on Emmett Street. A piece of property that's been assessed north of $19 million. And remember, assessments lag actual market value. Charlottesville City, Charlottesville Public Schools, Charlottesville personnel already lauding the win, calling it a generational impact this win will have on Charlottesville, Virginia. We're going to unpack it on today's show, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to talk about this from many different angles and elements. How did Charlottesville win one of the most coveted pieces of property and beat an arch nemesis that has significantly more money at its disposal. And by significant more money at its disposal, what kind of comparison can I do here? I'm talking like Charlottesville City Schools is to Fred Flintstone as the University of Virginia is to Scrooge McDuck. That kind of disparity in wealth. Maybe a Barney Rubble is the Charlottesville Public Schools, while Scrooge McDuck is the UVA Foundation and the University of Virginia. $0 Charlottesville will spend on this building. But ladies and gentlemen, let's dig deeper into the headlines. It's still going to cost taxpayers money because the upkeep of 14 acres and an old hotel, this was once an old hotel, is going to be quite costly. And let's keep in mind the building still has to be retrofitted. A lot we're going to unpack on today's program. We're going to talk on today's show some information passed along to me yesterday by Deep Throat, number one in the family, about Lee Enterprises and how close Lee Enterprises, the parent company of the Daily Progress, is to bankruptcy. We're going to read some information, some finance information to you on the I Love CVille show and let you get a glimpse on how close Lee Enterprises is to potentially closing its doors. We want to remind the viewers and listeners that John Reed, Judah, is on tomorrow's show. Mm-hmm. You got a Skype test lined up for him prior to the program. Is that at a 12:20 test? Yep. And he's coming right on the program at 12:30. We're going to spend an hour with the lieutenant governor candidate that is embattled and over the last 3 or 4 days has slowly become martyred. He's becoming almost sainted by the vicious attacks from Glenn Youngkin and conservative Republicans and the OG of the Republican Party, that it's doing its best to ouster, to stigmatize, to tar and feather the lieutenant governor candidate. He spends an hour with us tomorrow. Judah Wickower, I'm going to weave you in, studio camera in a two-shot, and I want some insight to you, which headline intrigues you and why.
I am intrigued by the fact that UVA seemingly did not even get a chance to really put their bid in for this property.
I think UVA made their interests known.
Yeah, they certainly did.
And I think UVA had an even playing field to acquire the Federal Executive Institute. Okay. I think the Federal Executive Institute, I mean, there was a BOV meeting called to review this. We knew last week that UVA had submitted documentation that it wanted.
Filed on the 21st.
Filed on the 21st. So it was an even playing field.
Okay.
You disagree, even playing field?
Was it an even playing field?
I think Charlottesville Public Schools just got picked because of its prioritization of preschool education.
Yeah, so it doesn't seem like it was much of a competition.
Perhaps not much of a competition, but an even playing field. Nevertheless, the Department of Education just chose a candidate that they thought was best suited for this building and this location based on the Department of Education's agenda and mission.
Yeah.
I thought the public school system won this battle because of very clear language put in its documentation. We are going to use the Federal Executive Institute for preschool learning, for preschool teaching, for preschool kids.
Yeah.
Okay? They de-emphasize the administrative piece of what they're trying to do and made it about early education and preschools. And when it was all said and done, that was enough to push Charlottesville Public Schools over the finish line. Your read, Judah, what do you got?
That was also the stipulation that the Department of Education gave them for using it, is that the majority of it would be used for pre-K and not for administrative, which fortunately was the plan that they had already in place.
And as number one in the family, his photo on screen, Deep Throat has said in direct message capacity, that stipulation for preschool use instead of administrative use primarily is what pushed him over the edge. He has this for some commentary, but then we're going to really unpack this story, ladies and gentlemen. He says this, that oftentimes with these type of purchases, you get administrators trying to build a palace for themselves. It's smart move by the Department of Education to caveat that the use was for preschools and not for administrative offices to prevent a palace to be built for administrators.
Yeah,
I echo that thought. Still, we voice concerns. I voiced concerns yesterday. You, the viewer and listener, have voiced concerns. That Emmett Street corridor is a brutal one. There's no easy way in or out the Federal Executive Institute if you're going northbound on Emmett Street. If you're coming on southbound on Emmett Street, there is easy entry. Northbound, there is not. Other points of concern that should be made, the Federal Executive Institute is not exactly a neighborhood preschool. Oftentimes you see these early education facilities associated with neighborhood from a proximity standpoint, close to elementary schools, close to where big brother and big sister are being dropped off. So parents can tag team carpooling and the drop off of multiple children. In this scenario, an Emmett Street preschool is not really close to any other elementary schools. You're also going to have a potential traffic snarl nightmare. I mean, I would imagine Emmett Street's one of the most challenging corridors from a traffic standpoint right now. Imagine having a feeder system for all of Charlottesville Public Schools smack dab in the middle of Emmett Street and the Cock Block and the Fried Chicken Alley, the chicken strip. That's what you got here. There are other concerns, the impact it's going to have on taxpayers as you're rotating lower thirds on screen, Judah Wickhauer. We wonder about maintenance of these 14 acres. We wonder about upkeep of these massive buildings. We wonder about retrofitting the buildings, a former hotel, a former government building, into a preschool. How's that going to look? How much is that going to cost? We've highlighted in past that Buford, one of Charlottesville's schools, was at one point in such terrible condition that they had to raise $70 or $80 million to remodel and renovate Buford. They took money from the West Main Streetscape project and allocated it to Buford. We're now adding what is arguably the largest or the most challenging property to retrofit, upkeep, and remodel. This is a great question for any of the developers that are watching the show. Of all the Charlottesville Public School owned real estate, all the Charlottesville Public School managed real estate, what holding is more challenging to manage from a cost, employee, and time standpoint? What is more challenging to manage than the Federal Executive Institute? Would you say Charlottesville High School? I mean, I could see why CHS would be a good example. Would be apropos. They got a football field. They got a football stadium. They got soccer fields. They got baseball fields, softball diamonds. They got basketball courts. They got a boatload of kids going there. I mean, you got to say Charlottesville High School is going to be more challenging to manage, to upkeep, to maintain than the Federal Executive Institute. Is a clear-cut to these 14 acres? I don't have that answer. I'm just spitballing with you, the viewer and listener. Okay? And I want to know this. I think it's important that we ask questions. And first, I want to salute Charlottesville City Hall, Sam Sanders, Dr. Royale Gurley for acting quickly. I want to applaud Charlottesville, the jurisdiction, for winning this fight. Job well done.
They went after it.
City Manager Sanders, excellent work. Superintendent Gurley, excellent work. Support staff in City Hall, excellent work. You guys went balls to the effing wall here. And your initiative secured what Sam Sanders has called a generational piece of real estate for Charlottesville, Virginia. Great work going balls to the effing wall, guys. Congratulations on your victory. You are hearing me give them props. Now I ask fair questions. What is expected of taxpayers I understand it's $0 to purchase this. I get it, $0. But it's not $0 to staff. It's not $0 to maintain. It's not $0 to upkeep moving forward. It's not $0 to retrofit. I understand that there's money already in the coffer that was allocated to doing this at a different location. My curiosity is there additional dollars that are needed to turn this into a preschool epicenter and some administrative offices? And what does the upkeep look like moving forward? My other questions I have is, how does this impact traffic? What's this do from a traffic standpoint, from a roads standpoint, from an infrastructure standpoint? What's the impact it has taking a preschool away from a neighborhood model? Schools are neighborhood modeled schools. Elementary schools feed from neighborhoods. This preschool early education situation is going to feed from the entire city, not a neighborhood, but the city as a whole. What's that impact going to have? I'm wondering questions we all should be asking. Okay? What is the administrator piece going to look after the Department of Education takes its eyes off the prize and gets distracted with other work? Are we going to see this turn into an administrative epicenter and less preschool? Very curious, because how they won this bid was calling it preschool first, preschool second, and preschool third, administrative fourth. Now, from a UVA standpoint, why did UVA lose? Why did UVA lose? We're about to have a conversation on today's show that the Department of Justice, the DOJ, has sent yet another letter to the University of Virginia. This one much more threatening, as you put that lower third on screen. The DOJ has written a threatening letter to Jim Ryan and the University of Virginia and the Board of Visitors. This is the federal government, ladies and gentlemen, saying if you don't eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion at UVA immediately, you are going to have your short and curlies grabbed and you're going to be put over the fire. That's legitimately what the Department of Justice is doing. And you don't mess with the DOJ. Okay, so we already have Jim Ryan and the University of Virginia in the crossfire of the federal government. Is it conspiracy theory to think this impacted UVA's loss in any capacity, the Federal Executive Institute? Is that conspiracy? Is that strictly conspiracy that UVA did not get the Federal Executive Institute because UVA is essentially, giving the one-finger salute to Donald Trump with this DEI initiative? Fair question. On the day, within a 24-hour period of the Department of Justice writing a letter to the University of Virginia threatening UVA, in that same 24-hour period, UVA loses the Federal Executive Institute. Mm-hmm. Is it conspiracy? Is there a correlation? I'm just asking questions. That's all I'm doing here. That's all I'm doing. We know Trump's not a fan of what the University of Virginia is doing. He's not a fan of what other schools like Harvard are doing. Just asking questions. Viewers and listeners, let us know your thoughts. Judah Wickhauer, you jump in with some perspective.
I think this was bound to happen sooner or later. It's been pretty clear from sources like the Jefferson Council, from other sources, that UVA has been flouting the order to get rid of DEI. That they've essentially internalized a lot of the structures that they'd put in place. That they've internalized a lot of the processes they've put in place, and it seemed like they weren't going to attempt at all to get rid of any of the DEI. So it's hardly a surprise that someone in the government has said, hey, look, we gave you an order and you're not following it. And I don't think it's such a far jump to a leap of the imagination to think that this may be a bit of a smackdown, a way of saying, hey, we're not even going to give you a chance to go for the FEI building because you don't deserve it.
Multiple viewers and listeners think there's a correlation between the University of Virginia spitting in the face of the President Donald Trump on day 101 of his second term and the University of Virginia losing the Federal Executive Institute to a public school system with a fraction of the budget. Kevin Yancey says there's no doubt in my mind that UVA lost this because of what it's doing with Donald Trump. Randy O'Neill is making the same comment. I'm seeing this on so many different pages right now. Deep Throat adds this perspective. I suspect DOE people did not want to reward UVA at the same time DOJ is sending UVA nastygrams about its DEI programs. The Department of Education, Deep Throat says, does not give a crap about maximizing value from the disposal. That's not how PBC process works. This is an intriguing idea from Waynesboro's finest, Kevin Yancey. He says this, can you imagine if Charlottesville Public Schools was then able to take this piece of property that they got for $0 and used it as an asset to sell back or to put back on the market and sell it to UVA for $50 million? Get it for zero. Now, I don't have this answer, but I would imagine there's strings associated with the Department of Education that Charlottesville Public Schools cannot go and the next day list this property in the open market for the highest bidder. I think it's an intriguing idea, but I would imagine the DOE has strings attached here with this transaction that the public school system cannot go and list this to the highest bidder and tantalize the University of Virginia with 14 acres and in a gateway quarter to Thomas Jefferson's University. Kevin Yancey, I appreciate the creativity, however.
Yeah.
Neil Williamson, the president of the Free Enterprise Forum, watching the program, his photo on screen. He says Title 40 USC 550 parentheses C authorizes the Administrator of General Services in his direction to assign to the Secretary of Education as appropriate for disposal of such surplus real property, including buildings, fixtures, and equipment situated thereon. I just missed the comment. Comments are coming in so quickly that the comment just got pushed down. Let me find Neil Williamson's comment again and read it to you. He is sharing some code with us. The Administrator of General Services in his direction to assign to the Secretary of Education as appropriate for disposal of such surplus real property, including buildings, fixtures, and equipment situated thereon, as is recommended by the Secretary as being needed for school, classroom, or other educational uses. And he shares a link. Kevin Yancey says, just wait, there will not be a Department of Education soon. And Deep Throat confirms what we said. You cannot sell this for 30 years. It is a covenant. You legally cannot sell this for 30 years. We have to ask ourselves the question, is it a fair correlation or strictly conspiracy that UVA is such redheaded stepchild that Donald Trump intervened in some capacity and kept the Federal Executive Institute from going to UVA? Do you want to highlight any elements of that threatening letter to the viewers and listeners that jumped out to you?
Yeah, I can. It's basically saying...
you better do this or else.
Yeah, it says, we issued letters April 11th and April 18th, and you have not followed through. This current letter should be received and considered to be in conjunction with those letters, but should not be read to alter, modify, or in any way limit those inquiries and requests. It says the Board of Visitors met and said that they were going to dissolve DEI at the University of Virginia, and that we've received complaints that your office and the university may have failed to implement these directives, and further, that you have refused to produce the report on the matter. And then they go into some bullet points of what's expected from UVA moving forward.
In the year 2023, the University of Virginia received $384 million in federal funding. That was in the year 2023, by far the most amount of federal funding of any institute of higher learning, with Virginia Tech in second place. A very distant second place. JMU and VCU were in the single digits of millions and received federal funding in 2023. I'll put that in perspective again. In the year 2023, UVA received $384 million in federal funding. JMU and VCU received single digits millions of federal funding. To put $384 million in perspective, the UVA operating budget over the course of a year is $5.8 billion. So $384 million is roughly what, 7-8%, just off the top of my head? That's a good chunk of money, 7 or 8%, ladies and gentlemen. And that $384 million from 2023, about 7 or 8% of this year's budget, is colliding with Board of Visitors' interest to slash the budget in other places.
Yeah.
So here you got Trump and in his second term saying, UVA, I may not give you this federal funding if you don't eviscerate DEI. And this federal funding that I'm going to give you may not seem like a lot, but it's about 7 or 8% of your operating budget over a year. And that threat is happening at the same time that Glenn Youngkin's Board of Visitors goes completely Youngkin appointed on July 1. That means no Robert Hardy as rector, no Rob Hardy, Jim Ryan's homie on the BOV. So on July 1, Youngkin's got total control of the BOV, and the BOV, one of their missions under Youngkin's tutelage, under Youngkin's appointment leadership, is to cut operating budget. So at the same time, on both ends here, you have the federal government looking to slash funding, and you have the BOV looking to slash funding.
Yeah.
All this is transpiring at the same time, ladies and gentlemen. That's why, and to add fuel to the fire, the debacle, the turmoil, the roller coaster, the soap opera at UVA Health, which is the top revenue generator. The top revenue generator of the University of Virginia is the health system. Without the UVA health system, the University of Virginia in totality cannot operate. The health system keeps the University of Virginia afloat. You want to add some extra wrinkles, Judah? Why don't we add some extra wrinkles to the puzzle and to the conundrum? How's these for extra wrinkles? Are we on the brink of a recession here? I sincerely mean that.
I think even someone at UVA is saying we're pretty close.
Dr. Ed Burton, the economist. I've taken classes from Ed Burton while a student at the University of Virginia. He highlights two pieces of data that suggest maybe we're approaching a recession. One of them, GDP from the first quarter. A forecasted 0.4% increase came in at 0.3%. The second piece of data Ed Burton highlights is the ADP workforce numbers, showing job creation coming in about half of what it had been forecasted at. So here you have an economist saying these two pieces of data, these KPIs, suggest we may be heading into a recession.
Yeah. And I'm sure he's not the only one.
In recessionary times, are donations and fundraising happening at the same clip? Does the University of Virginia rely on fundraising and donations? That's a headwind. You have the federal government dangling a $400 million, $384 million in 2023 purse, saying if you don't do away with DEI, we're not going to give you this money. You got the Board of Visitors looking to cut an yearly operating budget. You got DOGE and the Department of Government Efficiency slashing left and right, which is going to impact UVA. You got the UVA health system fiasco.
Continuing. Still.
I was having a conversation yesterday with a retired professional from UVA Health. Literally got out within the last year. He says, Jerry, What's the latest scoop? I listen to you. What's the latest scoop on what's going on with my former employer? I rattle off just what I said. And he says to me, he goes, good God, I think I got out at exactly the right time. Now let's go get a beer. That's what he says to me. He's retired. Let's go get a beer. Having a conversation with him. He's on one bench. I'm on the other bench. After playing some sports, we have a conversation. We get to talking with each other. He says, let's have a beer. And then I talk about UVA Health. He goes, yeah, all my colleagues are saying morale is at the pits and at an all-time low at the health system. I said, it is.
Either.
And they're also talking about pay cuts there.
While getting ready to pony up who knows how much for whatever they were going to bid on the FEI building.
Well,
I would be extremely upset if I worked for UVA and I was looking at a pay cut or even just not getting a raise.
but I get that perspective, but that perspective and I mean this in the most gentle way. That perspective is wrong.
Okay.
The money that's in the endowment is not used for payroll.
Right.
It's not used for performance-based bonuses or cost of living 3% pay increases.
But as you yourself are so fond of saying, perception is reality.
I get that, and that's a great response, and that's your response. That's a fair response. That's a legitimate response.
And your response is legitimate as well. I'm just saying that the way it may look from the inside of UVA and UVA Health is, hey, they don't care about us, but they're willing to, they're willing to pony up 20, 30, 40 million for another piece of property that they probably won't do anything with for the next 5 or 10 years.
I mean, a celebration happened yesterday. If you go to UVA Today, news.virginia.edu, and you see the lead headline on news.virginia.edu, the lead headline is McIntyre School cuts ribbon for totally cool building created with students in mind. A McIntyre School of Commerce graduate, I will give you his name here, donated $25 million. Chris and Carrie Shumway. Chris is a 1988 McIntyre School alum. He is the founder of Shumway, Shumway Capital. He gave $25 million to UVA. And that $25 million was used in the McIntyre School of Commerce. I love this quote from Jim Ryan. He says, quote, this is Jim Ryan. This shows you branding, okay? As cool as the building is, it's what will happen here in this building, Shumway Hall, and the renovated Cobb Hall, on the beautiful Breeden Commerce grounds that would matter. Look at all the branding and namesake rights in that one sentence from Jim Ryan alone. The ribbon cutting was yesterday. I'm going to give it to you again. Quote, as cool as the building is, it's what will happen here in Shumway Hall, in the renovated Cobb Hall, on the beautiful Breeden Commerce grounds. That's 3 rich families that donated money to UVA for naming rights because it's legacy. They want buildings and not payroll, because payroll and 3% pay raises to match inflation, which 3% does it. UVA Health, you watch this program all the time. UVA Physicians Group, you watch this program all the time. The fact that you're only getting 3% cost of living raises year over year over year, you guys are losing money. The 3% is not enough.
Yeah.
Okay? You're not getting enough there. We do more than that here. Okay? You're not getting enough. The fact that you're having your pay frozen, no performance-based bonuses, discretionary spending frozen, and Judah, now talking pay cuts. Do more with less. I was having a conversation with a neighbor, a former surgeon at the University of Virginia. He was talking about his time there and how it was constantly do more with less. And he says eventually when you're working 17, 18, 19-hour shifts and you start getting to middle age, you can't do more with less.
Yep.
Because you need to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do more with less. It's the patient care that suffers.
Yeah. I think companies too often push for more, without any conception of what they're really asking for.
Yancey says, look at the football stadium. It's Carl Smith Center, Scott Stadium at so-and-so field.
Yep.
Even got naming rights for the head coaching basketball position. Tony Bennett, or who's the head coach now? Ryan Odom. It's not just head coach of UVA. There's some kind of branding that goes with it. Attorney Elliot Harding watching the show. Love Esquire Harding. I was walking around the building your office was in earlier today, Elliot Harding. Elliot Harding says, his photo on screen, Elliot's a smart guy. We need to get him back on the show. The DEI threat probably comes on the back of the trans medical issue, to be honest. He also says, UVA owns enough property. Big win for Charlottesville Public Schools. At least it'll be secure theoretically. Great comments right there from a father of 2 young children. Love Elliot. Vanessa Parkhill, her photo on screen. Agree. Props to CVille City School leadership on securing the FEI property. She says, this is what happens when money is involved. Feds have leverage over UVA because they hold purse strings. I would not be surprised if withholding of funds over the DEI issue ultimately lands in court. I do not expect UVA and similar universities to give up on those principles easily. Vanessa Parkhill also says, the health system may be a top revenue generator, but I think they are separate from the academic side of the university. I think they have separate retirement pools and benefits, so I'm not sure how revenue from the health system flows to the academic side. Maybe other listeners know more about this. And she also says, aren't most of UVA's real estate holdings owned by the foundation? That would not impact salaries in the health system or academics. A lot of them are owned by the foundation, but UVA owns a lot of them themselves as well, Vanessa Parkhill. Appreciate the Queen of Earlysville commenting on the show. Sam Sanders, job well done.
No doubt.
Superintendent Gurley, job well done. How about the data that Deep Throat sent us as a reason to argue against the Federal Executive Institute? Show us the chart of declining enrollment at Charlottesville elementary schools. Let us know when that's on screen. Look at the screen, viewers and listeners. Look at the screen. Number one in the family, Deep Throat, sent this to me via DM. Deep Throat, you really make the program better when you watch and listen and participate. I sincerely mean that. The elementary schools in Charlottesville's public school system, Burnley Moran Elementary School, has a utilization rate of 57%. The Greenbrier Elementary School has a utilization rate of 51%. The Jackson Via Elementary School has a utilization rate of 79%. Johnson Elementary, 77%. Summit Elementary, 78%. Trailblazer Elementary, 62%. Of the 6 elementary schools in Charlottesville Public School System, there are 6 of them. Not a single one of them has a utilization rate, Judah, Wickhauer, of 80% or more. Mm-hmm. I want you to listen to what I just said. And there's a reason Deep Throat sent this data to me. There's not a single elementary school in the Charlottesville public school system that is anywhere near capacity from an enrollment standpoint. There's not a single elementary school in the Charlottesville public school system that has a utilization rate that is 80% or more. Not a single one. And yet they're going to take 14 acres on Emmett Street and all the overhead and maintenance costs that go with retrofitting and remodeling the former, what? Was it the Jefferson Hotel? A building that was built in 1950, 1952? If you look at the data from Weldon Cooper, Hamilton Lombard, one of the data statisticians, what do they call those guys? What's Hamilton's? I'm going to go to LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn a lot to get exact titles. Hamilton. Going to LinkedIn. Was he not on LinkedIn? That's so weird. Hamilton's exact title is the Estimates Program Manager for the Demographics Research Group. He is the man often in the data about population and movement in this area or across the Commonwealth. He's often referenced. You look at the data from Weldon Cooper, and they talk enrollment numbers at public schools locally in Albemarle County and Charlottesville City. The data suggests, forward-looking forecasts suggests that the public school systems will drop in population and enrollment. And let's try to unpack why the public school systems in Albemarle County and in Charlottesville City are going to drop in population or enrollment. Do you want to attempt to unpack that, Judah? Do you want me to unpack it?
I mean, part of it could be people with families getting pushed out of properties based on whether it's tax costs or just price of living in this area.
Okay, that's absolutely correct. Judah, that's the first answer. What's happening in Charlottesville City and Albemarle County, specifically those two jurisdictions, the cost of living is astronomical.
Yeah.
And baby boomers are coming to Charlottesville City and Albemarle County by the hundreds, by the thousands, because they wax nostalgic over times at University of Virginia, or they fall in love with hiking and restaurants and music and outdoor, the downtown mall, or like my parents who chose to move just outside Asheville, North Carolina, and Flat Rock, they wanted to be close to a major medical center. And guess what? Charlottesville's got two of them, Centera and the University of Virginia. So boomers are flocking here. They are flocking here by the thousands. What do boomers not have?
Kids at home.
Kids in public schools. Number one, the impact of boomers locally. Number two, the escalating cost of living locally, pushing young families who have yet to build wealth to outer county regions like Waynesboro, like Fluvanna, like Louisa, like Orange and Green. Right? Mm-hmm. Next, the families that can afford to live here, they got dollar bills, y'all. And their kids are going to private schools. Do you know what enrollments are increasing all over Charlottesville and Albemarle County? The private schools. Covenant, St. Anne's, the Miller School, Blue Ridge School, Regents, Field School. All these private schools are legitimately doing capital improvement projects tied to epic fundraising done with their respective parent bodies. You're seeing a sociology experiment play out before our very eyes. Where's Brad Wilcox when we need him? Love Brad Wilcox, my sociology professor at the University of Virginia 20-some years ago. Boomers don't have kids. Area expensive to live in, median family household income according to HUD was at 125,800.
Yeah.
125,800. The families that can afford to live here are so deep-pocketed, they're picking private schools.
Yeah.
Weldon Cooper, Hamilton Lombard, school enrollment's dropping. Put the chart back on screen. Look at the utilization rate right now. Ask questions. Look beyond press releases. Don't just take old media and legacy and traditional media that's dying as if it's the word of God. It's okay to push back. And that's what we do on the I Love CVille show. That's why you watch. We have the benefit of long-form content and not 15 or 30-second sound bites. And then we crowdsource information with really smart people that we trust and relay it to you for you to make your own decision. No one else is doing this locally. Neil Williamson, he's got a comment. He says the main building of the Federal Executive Institute was originally designed in the colonial revival style by Charlottesville architect Milton L. Grigg as the Thomas Jefferson Inn, which opened on May 19, 1951. The construction was carried out by Ivy Construction Corporation of Virginia. Currently, it is used as a residence hall and trading facility by the Federal Executive Institute. The building contains 52 guest rooms, a dining room with the capacity to hold approximately 88 people, 8 classrooms, a conference room, and a store. And then he shares the link where that information is from. You can find that on my personal Facebook page, facebook.com/Jerry Miller now. While you're there, hit the follow button, please. Unbelievable. Vanessa Parkhill, with those elementary school buildings being so underutilized, it sounds like the Federal Executive Institute acquisition could be quite the boondoggle. Not a single elementary school in Charlottesville has a utilization rate of 80%. They're all 80% or less. All of them. But that information, Judah, is not in the press release. That information is not in a single news outlet locally. All the news outlets that are doing locally is just regurgitating the press release, the same press release. And we wonder why old media is suffering. And that's a perfect segue into the Lee Enterprises information. Are you ready for this? Can you put that lower third on screen? This information broke earlier this month in April. Lee Enterprises is the owner of the Daily Progress. It also owns the Richmond Times-Dispatch and a number of other newspapers, ladies and gentlemen, in the Commonwealth of Virginia. It is the largest owner of newspapers in Virginia, and it's not even close. Lee Enterprises is a publicly traded company. Lee purchased all these brands, all these newspapers from Warren Buffett's organization and one of his divisions called BH Media. Warren Buffett made a move of getting into local media, and then he exited soon thereafter because local media, traditional media, old media has got big time headwinds. Lee said, you know what? The Oracle of Omaha, he thinks he can't do it and there's headwinds for it, but we can do it. Well, guess what? Lee was wrong. Here's the information for you. This is the parent company of the Daily Progress, ladies and gentlemen. Lee Enterprises, its stock symbol LEE on the NASDAQ exchange, is a major player in newspaper publishing industry with annual revenue of $600 million. It announced a significant agreement to bolster its short-term liquidity. The company disclosed on Monday, earlier this month in April, that BH Finance LLC and BH Media Group Inc., that's Warren Buffett, folks. Berkshire Hathaway is BH. I'll continue with the release. Lee Enterprises disclosed on Monday that BH Finance LLC and BH Media Group have agreed to waive the April 2025 interest and lease payments respectively. According to analysis, Lee Enterprise operates with a significant debt burden with total debt standing at $480 million against a market capitalization of just $63 million. The decision, recorded in a recent 8K filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission, follows a cybersecurity attack that led to a system outage at Lee Enterprises. Now, this is me talking now. Remember when the Daily Progress could not print its newspaper? And remember when the Daily Progress was down and it said a cyber attack has taken us down? That cyber attack was so crippling for Lee Enterprises that it could not make its debt service payment to Warren Buffett's company in April and according to filings, also in March. I'll put this in very simple terms. My favorite kind of deal that I structure is a seller finance deal. We're putting one together for clients right now for a $1.1 million purchase north of town. And how these structures work is you have a buyer, and this buyer wants something from somebody else. But that buyer is going to have a hard time potentially getting money from an institutional lender. So the buyer, in consultation with somebody who's sophisticated in making these deals, structures a seller finance deal. They go to the seller and say, you know what, your asset is not the best asset, okay? Your asset is a distressed asset of some capacity. Maybe it's a distressed asset from a real estate standpoint because the building is crumbling, because the roof's banged up, because it hasn't been taken care of. Maybe it's in a bad location. In this newspaper deals case, it's a distressed asset, what Warren Buffett had, because the newspaper business sucks. And it has historically for a long period of time. I think we have a chart or data that shows advertising revenue in the newspaper business. A chart provided again by Deep Throat, number one in the family. Can you put that chart on screen? Okay, which one are you putting on screen first?
You want both of them? I've only got the top one.
That's the one with the black background?
Yeah.
Okay, this chart.
You want me to grab the other one?
This is good. This is perfect. Thank you. Is a chart that shows advertising spending. This is with the blue roller coaster dipping down, right?
This is with the black background and the red line going up.
Okay. Go get the first one, yes. The one with the blue one. That's the one I wanted you to get, please. I'll continue and let me know when you have that chart on screen. The newspaper business, it's this one that you need to get.
Okay.
The newspaper business has been in rough shape. So Warren Buffett's company is like, yeah, we'll set up a deal. We'll finance the purchase for you, Lee Enterprises. We own all these newspapers. We don't want to be in this business anymore. So Lee purchases the newspapers from Berkshire Hathaway. The collateral, if they default on the deal, is Berkshire could potentially take all the brands, all the assets that Lee purchased back. But ladies and gentlemen, think about what just happened. In March and April of this year, Lee Enterprises said a cyber attack crippled our business, and we can't make the debt service payment to you, Warren Buffett, for March or April. Warren Buffett had an opportunity, if he wanted, Berkshire Hathaway, to take everything back. Lee Enterprises has made a boatload of monthly payments to Warren Buffett already, a boatload of them. But instead of taking all the assets back, Warren Buffett said, okay, you don't make the March payment, you don't make the April payment. This is going to free up some capital for you to handle this cybersecurity. I'm going to tack on the March payment and the April payment to the principal on the back end of our agreement. And this will keep you at least liquid for a little while. That shows you how significantly in peril the finances are for Lee Enterprises, the parent company of the Daily Progress right now. They were on the brink of defaulting on their seller finance payment for March and April, and Warren Buffett literally could said, give me everything I sold to you back to me. You are out. You have that on screen?
Yeah.
What we're going to put on screen is a tracker of total national and local newspaper advertising in the United States of America, a 35-year history. Look at the tracking of the ad spend for newspapers over the last 35 years. That chart's on screen?
Yep.
That's going in the wrong direction. This is like Loch Ness Monster at Busch Gardens when you're going down the big hill and your stomach drops. Unbelievable. The newspaper of record for Charlottesville, Virginia, its parent company, could not make its debt service payment for March and its debt service payment for April, and then had to go to Warren Buffett with its hat in hand and said, please help us. We're on the brink of bankruptcy and are defaulting on our agreement. And Warren said, your company sucks so much, I don't even want the assets that I sold to you back Just take the debt service, the payment you missed for March and April, and add it to principal on the back end and keep paying me. And why should you know that? Why should you know that, viewers and listeners? Because it's the only newspaper in Charlottesville. Mm-hmm. That's why you should know that. Because reporters and news keep business folks and elected officials and other stakeholders, they hold them accountable by reporting what's happening. You would be shocked to learn the amount of subscribers that the Daily Progress has, paying subscribers. You would be shocked, and that data is public. Comments are coming in quickly. This from Jason Noble. Do we have a photo for Jason Noble?
Don't think
We need to
so.
get Jason Noble's photo. I'm friends with him on Facebook. Let's add him to the family list. Maybe we can do that after the show, please. He says, a lot of us opted out of public schools despite not having Scrooge McDuck money, all because of the insane ideologies being taught across the country. 100%, Jason Noble's 100% right. And you saw a lot of people opt out of public schools really during COVID and the pandemic because of return to classroom learning was such slow progression in public schools versus private schools. The private schools pivoted right away. Miller School, learning was prioritized outside. Kids were learning intense outside. Public schools, they were doing PE class. I had one PE teacher that I play racket sports with that's a teacher in the Charlottesville public school system. He said he was, is the shot on me?
Yeah.
You can do a two-shot. He said, Judah, this is what I was instructed to do by the front office in Charlottesville Public Schools during COVID. He said, all right, kids, it's time for gym. Everyone log on to Zoom. Sit in your chair. Grab your tennis ball. Put your tennis ball in your right hand. Here's the tennis ball. Get the tennis ball in your right hand and throw it while you're sitting in front of your computer and your camera at home. Throw it in the air. And catch it with your left hand. Did you catch it with your left hand, students? Yes, good job, guys. Now throw it to your right hand. Did you catch it with your right hand? You did? Oh my God, good work. Throw it to your left hand. Throw it to your right hand. And that was gym class. That was gym class. Mm-hmm. Carol Thorpe, Jack Jewett District. I was just about to say the same thing. I'm aware of many, many families who pull their kids out of Albemarle County schools in particular due to the insanity of both Superintendent Matt Haas and the school board. Absolute insanity. More comments are coming in. She adds this. All the ideological wackiness and various scandals resulted in the loss of lots of students. James Watson is watching the program. He says, keep in mind that Greenbrier is an aging neighborhood, so the statistics may not tell the real story because a lot of the residents have adult kids. That is the story. Isn't that the story? That the neighborhoods here locally are aging? Explain why that's the story.
You're saying that there are less and less families, so the schools are less and less filled, and additionally, the families that are coming in with money are not sending their kids to public schools. So essentially, there's I don't know about a flood, but at least more than a trickle of younger students leaving the public schools.
Exodus.
And going to the private schools or schools outside the area.
That's the story, that the neighborhoods are aging. That is the story. He adds, our local county and city public schools are fantastic. The more parents that are willing to volunteer their time, the better they will be. I 100% think they're fantastic. This is 100% not an indictment on Albemarle County Public Schools, and it is not an indictment on Charlottesville Public Schools. But the facts are the facts. It's expensive to live here, and it's coveted to live here, and the folks that are moving here are older. Do you know the average age? What is the median age of a U.S. home buyer now? Do you know what the median age of a U.S. home buyer is now?
If I had to guess, I'd say 38.
It's 38. You're
got it.
exactly right. 38 years old, the median age of a U.S. home buyer. 38. Why is the median age of a U.S. home buyer now 38? I'm talking first-time home buyer. First-time home buyer.
Right.
First-time home buyer is 38.
An important distinction.
First-time home buyer. The median age of a first-time home buyer is 38. Why is it 38?
Because
it's
housing
effing
is less and
expensive.
less affordable.
Because it's expensive. And when your median age is 38, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to have impacts in your community. Unbelievable. But I did not rip the public schools. That should not be turned into me ripping them. Had nothing to do with it. All I did was talk about utilization rates, population outflux and influx, and Weldon Cooper data. With the Daily Progress story, I just read facts to you. And those facts were that cybersecurity attack crippled the Daily Progress's finances so much that the Progress could not make its parent company, Lee Enterprises, its parent company, Lee Enterprises, could not make its debt service payment in March or its debt service payment in April. And if you want to read about this, I'm going to take the link to the article and I'm going to paste it in the comment section of my personal Facebook page. There. The article is posted there. I'm going to take the link to this article and I'm going to share it in the I Love CVille group with a please read this. And then the link is in the I Love CVille group now. I'll take that link about its struggles and share it on the LinkedIn chain of this show. I will post it on the YouTube chain of this show. I will post it on I Love CVille Food, I Love CVille, on 15 Twitter accounts, 15 Facebook pages, Fountain app, Rumble, YouTube, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Instagram, LinkedIn. We need to know this stuff. And that's why you watch the show. If you can't make your payments, I wonder if the folks that work for Lee Enterprises are aware of this. I sent the link to a star reporter. I'm not going to say who, but a friend of mine. You know what his response was to me? I'll read it verbatim. I'm going to open my phone from the text message I sent to him. I said, "Did you know about this?" His response, "Only now, Jerry. Thanks, I guess."
Yes.
All right. We're at the 136 marker. We got to go make some money. Did I cover all the headlines? I should remind the viewers and listeners that Lieutenant Governor candidate John Reed is on the show tomorrow, right?
Yep.
Lieutenant Governor, the embattled Lieutenant Governor is on the show tomorrow. But right now, he's the only Republican on the ticket. So maybe embattled is not the right word. Maybe the right word is it opportunistic? Are you opportunistic when you go through the stuff he's going through now? I wouldn't use fortunate. Maybe embattled is the right word. But is embattled even fair considering he's the only Republican on the ticket right now, so there doesn't need to be a lieutenant governor primary like there was if Pat Harity had stayed in the mix? Is it opportunistic or is it embattled?
What's opportunistic about it?
Because he doesn't have to participate in the Republican primary against Harity, because Harity dropped out because of the heart issues. And he was a 5-term supervisor in Fairfax County and the front runner for lieutenant governor on the Republican side.
I would only say that was opportunistic if he jumped in after Harity announced that he was not going to continue running.
So how would you just, well, regardless, he's on the show tomorrow.
Yeah, embattled is good. I mean,
Okay,
he
embattled.
is-
We'll go with embattled. Viewers and listeners, he is on the show tomorrow at 12:30. If you have questions, let me know. I'll relay them live on air. Did we cover all the topics on the show today? We didn't
not
even go
really.
after activist attorney Jeff Fogel. We didn't even talk about that.
Yep.
Is that the only one I missed?
Donald Trump, 101
Oh,
days.
man. So Trump, 102 days in
Fogel.
office. Save Trump tomorrow. Donald Trump, the headline should be Trump, 102 days in office, semicolon, his impact on CVille. Use that. Can you put that in the email draft as a headline? Trump, 102 days in office, semicolon, impact on CVille. His impact on CVille. All right, that's the talk show. Judah Wickhauer does a fantastic job. I need to emphasize this more. He does a fantastic job, Judah Wickhauer. My name is Jerry Miller, and this is the I Love CVille show. If you like the show, hit the like button. That's all I ask of you. Share the show. Tell somebody about the show. Thank you kindly for joining us. So long, everybody.